Okay kids, welcome to another history lesson. Today we're going to talk about Puppet Combo. Puppet Combo, you may have heard of it, maybe not, is an independent game studio that makes horror games and specializes in a specific style. They make these PS1 style games. It kind of looks cool, but I'll elaborate it further on another paragraph. Yeah, this is the paragraph where I introduce you to the Puppet Combo. Okay, so common thing asked by people discovering their games is, why are they making games like this? Why not make it with slightly better graphics, like let's say the fucking Last of Us Part 2? Quite frankly, I don't know why, and it surely is not because the whole horror genre is bombarded with games that always look the same, and the only chance you get to make it as an indie dev is to make shit that looks different and hope it catches some eyes. Yeah, surely that's not the reason why. Puppet Combo is not only different, but unique. For the past few years, it has gathered a community full of fans praising its games for its quaint style. The PlayStation 1 graphics isn't the only prominent feature that made Puppet Combo find its mark. Power Drill Massacre, Nun Massacre, Murder House is just a few in a packed catalog full of eccentric games waiting for you to blow a sack of fucking shit. Seeing the far-reaching influence of Puppet Combo's games and itch.io and how they can gather a community, it makes me just want to analyze what makes their games tick. Why people like it, especially why it's so goddamn scary. I found this article online about the 6 elements that make a great horror game. It's a great article and I recommend you reading it. The reason why I said that is because I'll also use this article as a reference for this video, because I don't have any prior gaming knowledge and it's quite fucking stupid and weird to pull fancy gamer words up my ass and expect people to understand the gibberish. But of course, for content's sake and to avoid copyright issues, I tweaked a little bit of it. You know, I made my own elements that I think makes Puppet Combo a quality horror developer. Enjoy.
I'm issuing you a challenge.
A lot of you probably don't even know who they are, or be forgotten already. Brain emptying as I speak.
One of Puppet Combo's striking details is its retro PlayStation 1 art style, topped off with a VHS finish. People have mixed feelings about this, but I generally like it. I think it gives the game a unique charm that some of the games don't have, as well as an eerie feeling that exclusively comes from its art style. A lot of people became fans just because of its aesthetic, and one of them, you could say, is me. I like it. Okay, we're gonna talk about POVs now. Some of Puppet Combo's games adopt a third-person-esque POV, similar to the old Silent Hill and Resi games, which I think also serves as a huge inspiration for a handful of their games. At first glance though, this POV might hinder a player's immersion because, you know, of the common notion of first person being more immersive. But I think Puppet Combo makes good use of it by having the freedom to angle player cameras in a way that helps its jump scares catch players off guard, which in turn helps the horror immersion by a lot. We see this executed perfectly in Night Watch and Murder House, and I just can't ignore how these scares are set up in such a way where it feels creative. It just tingles my creative senses, boy. There's also a chance that I'm just overanalyzing the shit out of this, and ultimately the reason why Puppet Combo uses this POV in some of its games is simply to give homage to the old Resi and Silent Hill games. Murder House even gave nods to the old Resi games, so yeah, that might contribute to that being a fucking statement. Okay. Another POV that Puppet Combo uses is the traditional third-person POV. This POV is beneficial in Power Drill Massacre, where it's used as a tool to communicate with the player that a cunt holding a fucking power drill is chasing you. If that doesn't really make sense, well, let me get this straight, okay? It's easier if you imagine it like when you're on a race and you realize the fucking dude on the left is catching up, so you gotta sprint faster. It's that adrenaline rush that I think comes from this visual cue that can only happen in a third-person POV. Now, one of its first-person games is Nun Massacre. It's sort of like Slenderman, but also not like, bro, that's such a dumb way to... The best way to describe this game is that you're playing hide and seek with a nun. It's similar to PDM, Power Drill Massacre, but with the exception of its POV. Some people think though it's way scarier than PDM because you're fully immersed in the game, not knowing where the fuck the nun comes from next, which is, yeah, it's an extra point in the jumpscare department. At birth, humans have two innate fears. One is the fear of falling, second is the fear of loud noises. We're gonna talk about the latter. You can slap in whatever image, put a loud sound, and expect 50% of the time people will jump. Put in a power drill holding psychopath in an abandoned building with cranked up sounds, you'll get a fucking scream fest. Puppet combo games are always like this. It has loud ass sound design that tears your fucking eardrums. Sometimes these sounds don't even make any sense. Like, what is that? Is that a railroad crossing siren emitting from the nun's mouth? But of course, this is what I might call a strategy. Puppet Combo realizes that sound design is a crucial key to maintaining fear in the player, and so they are really picky about which sound is used, except for that railroad from the Nun game, only to use some where it evokes a certain feeling in players, like let's say high screeches accompanied by blinking lights to create a feeling of urgency, or footsteps approaching to add more tension to an already tense scene. As for the atmosphere, I think the games tend to have bouts of quiet moments to draw fear, or to accentuate the loud sounds that come with jump scares. Murder House does this in a couple of its scenes. Another example is in PDM, where at times the atmosphere goes quiet as fuck, and the next thing you know, some cunt with a power drill comes from the fucking corner. For me, sound design and atmosphere is the defining aspect of a jump scare, and Puppet Combo does well to craft the utmost experience of it. That is it. Now, okay, next one. A lot of you might not even know the difference between horror and terror. Horror is the feeling when you get jump scared or see a spooky face. It's that immediate jolt and disturbance you feel. On the other hand, terror is best described as a lingering fear, a feeling that isn't sudden but slowly creeps its way up your spine. It's the anticipation before a jump scare. Horror games creates terror by putting tension in the player. This can either be caused by the feeling of isolation or the uncertainty of a threat, a jump scare. There's this task in Murder House where you need to find a key inside a shower room that's ominously quiet. Realizing how all of this is set up, players will expect something is gonna happen, but eventually left the player with nothing but just the feeling of sheer terror. This is a good use of sound to establish terror, which a Puppet Combo does a lot. In Nun Massacre, a game known for its bombastic scares and creepy atmosphere, might be the ideal place to easily bring tension. Players experiencing the jump scare for the first time will likely feel horrified to the point where it sprouts a fear related to the jump scare they just suffered, only to know the next run they'll dread the fact that it is bound to happen again. Combine that with the immersion of a first-person POV and a Stygian setting, you get a great example of terror established by the uncertainty of a threat or jump scare. If you still can't grasp the idea of terror, you're fucking dumb. A great horror game always manipulates the feeling of isolation. Truth is, there are lesser known horror games out there where you don't play alone. Horror games do this generally like all the fucking time because isolation is a good tool to instill fear in the player. And it's quite necessary because sometimes the presence of a threat might not cause fear when the player finds any type of closure. For example, like with a companion, that's the simplest. I don't know what I'm saying. Terror also tends to feel livelier when you feel isolated. It's like going to a haunted house with or without a friend. Puppet Combo does this a lot with its scenarios. Being alone in a building with a cunt holding a power drill, a kid alone in a mall, an intern stuck in a serial killer's house, you name it. Not only that, but Puppet Combo games are always picking players apart, manipulating anything to attain a sense of helplessness in the player. One of the things I noticed that makes players feel vulnerable is the size difference between you and the enemy. For example, throughout your playthrough in Murder House, you'll encounter the Easter Ripper, a cunning serial killer that stands tall above Emma, the player. You can still get a gun from a jar, but the game still tries its best to make you feel like you're helpless and weak by giving the gun a lesser value. Well, how the fuck do you give gun a lesser value? Technically, you can't kill the Easter Ripper before the final battle. Shooting it then will only make it retreat before hunting you again the next chance it gets. Sooner or later, your ammo runs out and you're as good as dead meat. Puppet Combo does this in some of his other games too, like in PDM. I don't know why I keep on referring to that. It's just a good game. And Nun Massacre, where the enemy is inhumanly fast at times and hard to deal with, and so it dissipates any hope that a player has and narrows it to only one, running away like a pussy. Okay, I think that is it. I'm just gonna end the video here. I'm done. If you wanna take something out of this video, just play Puppet Combo games, please. Yeah. Goodbye, guys.